Today we're going to be talking about how you can be the best PvE playing tank that there is. No, this isn't a PvP guide, and we're going to be offering a lot of different options when it comes to second offhand weapons or even the main hand weapon. I'm going to give you options that also you can get from Gorg, but also things that you can get from the actual just mutated or farmable in the real world so that you can get started gearing now and prepare for the better gear as you do higher tier things. But I do want to say, make sure you drop down in the comments if you have any questions throughout this video, or hit me up on Hudson Land. My name is Cyrus. You can come join our company, whatever the case. Come with me on a Gorg run and let me help you out. Let's get into this video. All right, so you are watching this. It is season 7 right now, and it's actually in February. And what we're going to be doing is talking about the build that I go to by default. And we're going to go kind of breaking this down. This will be a longer video, so I will timestamp everything down below. If you don't like a longer video and you want something quick, so sorry, go watch somebody else's content. But I'm going in depth so that you understand everything that we're doing. We're going to be talking attributes, gear, weapons, armor, and some strategy. So we're going to show you what I normally run, and then we're going to talk about some options and alternatives, especially for the offhands, depending on kind of team chemistry. Disclaimer before we get into all of this: is this best gear? No, but I am going to talk about perks that you would probably want to have if I don't have it on the gear, and things that you should probably look for. And as always, what works for you might not work for somebody else, and what works for me might not work for somebody else. So just as understanding that. Let's go through the actual armor pieces first. Now, we are going to be in a heavy loadout, so we're going to make sure that we are going to get less base damage. We are going to have less increased healing. There's a whole lot of benefits in being in heavy, but most of it is going to be from our actual armor stat that we have, and I'll show you that more about that here in just a moment. So we're actually going to run full heavy all the way down, and our artifact of choice is going to be the Void Dark Plate. And I put health on here. Mainly you can put whatever perk you can't get fit somewhere in your gear. It's best to put it on the artifact if it's going to be only for that build. However, this Void Dark Plate is in multiple builds for me, so usually when that happens, I will default to putting health or something like freedom to make sure that that's taken care of. Now, we use Void Dark Plate because it has an illegal combo and the actual perk. It has Enchanted Ward and Physical Aversion, but the artifact perk is your armor is increased by 20%. So if you have 3,000 armor, you're now at 3,600 armor. And this is what's really nice about it, is because any fortify you stack over and above this is just, exponentially increased. So this is why Void Dark Plate is so good. There are other options. However, I think if you're going to be a really effective tank, Void Dark Plate is where you start. But if you don't have it and it hasn't come around to drop from barnacles for you, don't fret, just use a heavy chest. Many a tank don't actually run a specific one for this. So yes, this one is time gated to barnacles to actually be the mutator. As far as the actual stuff on the gear, I would encourage you to start with Enchanted Ward. These are things that I would be looking for and having 4 of on your gear. Enchanted Ward and Refreshing, I would try to have at a 4 stack. And your other perk you probably want to look for is something like Vigor, Invigorated, or Freedom. Freedom is going to do some stuns. Vigor is going to do bleeds, poisons, and burns, and then you also have weakens and other things for invigorated to reduce. So you probably want to have some stacks of those. I deal with burns and bleeds and poisons. That's what you do in mutators all the time, so I try to keep some stacks there. However, I do have an invigorated, which is what reduces duration of weaken, disease, exhaust, and rend. So kind of have a mix of this. Maybe choose one and specialize in it, and then offhand figure out something to mitigate the rest, or just grab the best you can here. But I do think Enchanted Ward is what you aim for it. I'm not specifically saying, and what you're looking at is the Hoplite Gauntlets. Sure, this is from the raid, but it doesn't matter that it's from the raid. I'm talking about perks. Enchanted Ward's like a great one to start with. Even on these pants, I don't have Enchanted Ward, and this is not really what I would like to be using. I want Enchanted Ward. Hasted Vigor is not necessarily something I'm looking for as a tank. And then even as the boots, I have Accelerated Resolve here, but it's just because I wanted 725, and Hasted Vigor I don't really need. So what are the better options if you can't get into Gorg? What are some armor options that you can do? To be very clear, it is Frigid Dawn. Now, once again, this is time gated to Glacial Tarn being the mutator. However, if you do have dense mutator materia, you can go over to the kiln, and I'm going to go ahead and just walk over there and show you that. you can go over to the kiln and actually buy these pieces. So for 3,500 materia, you can pick up one of these each time. And if you're running M2s, you can even get the Azoth crystal gear, which is also really nice. I'm going to show you both of those right now. As you can see right here, the Great Helm of Frigid Dawn. It comes with Elemental Aversion and Enchanted Ward. It is a illegal perk combo. You can't roll this on gear normally, and this is what most people will default to, and a lot of very competent tanks, minus all the hoplite stuff, are still running Frigid Dawn because of Elemental Aversion and how good it is. Enchanted Ward doesn't block for like abilities, so if monsters use abilities against you or creatures, it doesn't do any of the reduction. However, Physical Aversion and Elemental Aversion do. So this is a really good combo that you can use there. But if, let's say, you can't get Frigid Dawn, either you don't have all the materia or you don't want to be able to farm it and you want to get this stuff now, well, there is the Azoth crystal set. But the benefit of this is it comes with Enchanted Ward and Refreshing, so you can get your 4 stacks here as well as some Enchanted Ward off of this by farming this gear. And this drops in M2s and is gear biased, so go tank some M2s, get some of this gear to drop, have some fun with it. Maybe just buy some cheap Enchanted Ward stuff off the market. However, you can also just buy it from here. Here's the Heavy Legs, Enchanted Ward Refreshing. Same thing here is the Cuses, which is the pants of Frigid Dawn with Elemental Aversion and Enchanted Ward. Now, that's everything when it comes to your gear, and that's pretty straightforward. I think that you can really overthink this, and sure, there are maybe some arguments about other things like Ironheart or Unmoved, depending on what you're doing. Ironheart gives you more health, Unmoved helps you get stopped from stuns and things like that. But in my experience in doing a lot of tanking, not only for Gorgon, multiple times during a week, I find there's a lot more success in having a bunch of armor from the start so that you can have that 3,600, 3,800 armor just using sword and shield. Now, let's go ahead and talk about weapons themselves. And again, I'm going to be showing you what I'm using right now, but I'm going to offer some alternatives and things that you should probably start with and move towards. Starting here with the Hoplite Longsword. This sword obviously drops from the raid, but we're really focusing on the perks here. Refreshing Move, Contagious Upheaval, and Trenchant Rend. Refreshing Move, obviously we want to be able to get our taunt back, which is Accelerated Resolve, or Defender's Resolve actually. So we want to be light attacking and heavy attacking to get that cooldown down. And Contagious Upheaval, we're going to be using the Upheaval perk to even further reduce our cooldowns. But this is really cool because if you have debuffs on you like disease or burning or something like that, whatever monster or AI or whatever you hit with this will transfer those debuffs to that monster. And those of you asking, no, it doesn't transfer Gorgon debuffs to the boss, anything inside the Gorgon raid. It used to, that was really funny, but it does not work anymore. So Contagious Upheaval doesn't work in the raid. However, the upheaval damage does. So there is a plus 18% damage on the weapon. You can put it on the armor. You also get Trenchant Rend, and this is whenever you do a heavy attack, you can get a rend that you're applying to the mob so that your DPS can do more damage. Basically, that's what rending does. 16%, it's got a 12-second cooldown. And this is what's really cool is you as a tank, depending on how you set this up and how I'm going to show you how to set it up, just your sword is going to be doing a lot of rend and helping out your team, not even doing any of the other stuff. Basically, as a healer, if you have a healer with Life Taker and you're running the rend setup that we have right here, you're going to be at max rend at all times, not even a question on the mobs that you're doing. And as far as the shield goes, there's a lot of things you can do. You obviously want to run a tower shield. We're not worried about weight necessarily in this case because we're already in heavy. So use the best shield that you can get for tower. I like running Hated here. There are a lot of times, especially with the stagger mechanics that, and definitely because we're going to be running Blood Drinker, that your damage is lower and you need to generate threat. So you having Hated here is really beneficial. However, it's not required. That being said, the shield that I love is actually the Legion Shield Wall, and the one that I got to drop is Accelerated Resolve, Shield Defense, Sturdy, and Hated. Accelerated Resolve being a really good perk. Obviously, you're going to get a haste boost off of this, but what's really nice with this is when you pop it, you get increased healing. So you're going to get more healing from your pots, from your healer, whatever the case, for 6 seconds. And in a pinch, this is really nice. And the benefit of the Legion Shield Wall is, once again, you can actually get it in the kiln. So if you go over here and you can just type in Legion Shield Wall, I believe it's in need materia. Yep. And then the very high chance right here is where it rolled hated for me, but it'll basically roll anything else for you, maybe even enchanted ward. So this is a really good one to kind of get started off with. And if you put accelerated resolve on your armor, great, don't get the shield. But if you don't want to and you want to have it on the shield, this is a really good one to get started out the gate with. Before we talk about our offhand or our second, we're actually going to talk about our jewelry. And I think that there's a lot of options here, and someone I can guarantee is going to be in the comments going, but I use this and I'm more of, I don't, that's great. I'm telling you that from a beginner's perspective and from like a getting it obtainability perspective, I think this is the best way to encourage people to do it. So for the Hoplite Amulet, which is what I'm running right now, the only reason I'm actually running it is 725 health and divine. And you can get this same kind of thing, but at 700 by running Life Ring, and you can get the Life Ring Amulet that also comes health and divine. So you'll see people actually doing like X up for a Life Ring in the recruitment. Go ahead and do that, go farm it for a bit. And once you get the Life Ring Amulet to drop, you can upgrade it, maybe put stamina recovery on it or refreshing recovery on it as well. So, but you're going to get health divine guaranteed. That's what you want. You want increased health and you want increased healing for effects that come in for you. The Hoplite Amulet has unimpeded. Cool stuns, woohoo, I like that. But personally, I would rather have a 725 here that has stamina recovery. Some of you are already going to see why I'm going to say that in a second. For the ring, I use Blood Drinker, and specifically I do this because if my healer is tied up, if there's something making them run around, if something is occurring, I need self-sustain. Sure, do I have a potion? But sure, am I losing, and I'm doing air quotes for real here, 25% damage with all the empowers and the base and how everything can increase as base on your build. I really don't think it actually sits as a true 25% damage. I'm not going to throw a number out there because someone will troll me, but I don't care about that. But what I'll say is that from a life stealing perspective and you being able to just do damage, because we are going to be swinging a lot, not blocking, this is giving you a lot of self-sustain. And tying that in with the rune glass that we're using, this gives you a lot of just uptime that if your healer's tied up, you can stay in the fight and keep things going. For the upgrade on the perk, I chose Keen Awareness. You can do slash damage. That's great. However, personally, I'm not always using a slash in my offhand. I would rather have the extra crit chance for both weapons depending on what I'm using. And again, this is totally up to you. I use Blood Drinker on multiple builds, and what I don't want to do is just tie myself to one single damage type when I know I'm going to use it in other builds. Think of versatility here. If I could have multiple Blood Drinkers, yes, I'd put slash damage on it. And for the earring, this is what I'm toying with and playing around with. For the raid specifically, for Echidna and Typhon, it's hard to generate aggro in the very beginning after they've done a patch coming into season 7. They kind of broke the raid in a way. But what I've been running is Despised right now, just to give even extra some kind of generating of threat so that I can get it to start the fight. Once I've got it, I'm fine. But there are times where I'll start the fight and fire staffs are already shooting, and I might have it for a moment through my taunt, but as soon as my taunt's gone, I haven't built up enough threat to over threat everybody else. And so I've been using this to kind of help mitigate that, especially because I changed my shield out, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the other option for this is what I actually would encourage you to do is the Hoplite earring that you can get, or any earring that has healthy toast. One of the potion changes that came in very recently made it to where you can't use a health pot or a regeneration on 2 different cooldowns. So healthy toast kind of turns a mana pot into a regeneration pot now, which is really cool. So that being said, having healthy toast on a ring is really nice. Now, where can you get this one? You can actually get it from the kiln with Life Loop. So with Life Loop, which you can buy from the kiln for materia, it is healthy toast, refreshing toast, and regenerating is the third perk that is kind of flex. Regenerating is great if you want to get that. You can also get Despised on it, but healthy toast, refreshing toast is what's really encouraged here, and I would encourage you to go get Life Loop. I believe it's Savage. We're going to figure this out together as I do this. I believe it's Savage, Divide, No, it's a need again. So it's a need materia, and you can farm materia either through the season pass, which gives you a whole bunch, or you can actually go do a need every single day and do the daily quest on a regular to be able to get the like however much materia per day, which is really nice. So again, refreshing toast, healthy toast, guaranteed for this. Now the alternatives for jewelry, somebody is obviously going to say, Cyrus, what about Ankh? And the truth is, yes, there are perfect times where I say Ankh is a great option. Why? Because you're going to get 25% stronger heals. So for every 2,000 heals you're going to be getting, right, you're getting a quarter of that. Still, you're getting a 2,500 heal over time bump there, which is really cool, except you now don't have any self-sustain. You are doing more damage. Sure, you could put leeching on your ring, but potions are going to be less, and you're relying a lot on your heals. Now, where does Ankh make sense? If you know your healer and you trust your healer, this is going to keep you the most topped off. However, you just don't have as much self-sustain. So if you don't have leeching somewhere or anything like that, you're relying solely on your healer to keep you up. So just know that Ankh is totally an option. And what I have been running is Ankh with the Hoplite ring that's got Healing Breeze, Hardy, and Bloodletting. If you use Healing Breeze and you actually proc Healthy Toast, which should be on your earring, it actually procs Healing Breeze. So you're able to get a really nice heal by just hitting your mana pot by doing this. So if I'm running Ankh, I'm running the Hoplite ring alongside it, or any ring that's got Healing Breeze. The problem with Healing Breeze is you can't run Leeching, so you have to choose Leeching or Healing Breeze. Now, there is one artifact that some people might swear by, and it is the Lost Stopwatch. Sure, it activates your taunts, you generate more threats, stuns last 1 whole second longer, and you lose 10% damage. And while this is and sounds like a great option, the one thing that I don't like about this is a lot of people try to stack Carnelians with it. And my understanding with the game is the Stopwatch and a Carnelian on your weapon do not stack, because it basically works against it. So you run a different thing there, or you run like the Butcher that doesn't have a gem slot unless you add it by doing gem setting pins, or another weapon like Spark of Milner that you can't add a gem setting pin to, but you do want to do stuns with it. This could be an option with Lost Stopwatch. However, it just comes down to sustainability. If I'm going to run Lost Stopwatch, I am trusting that my healer really is someone that I trust. I'm not running in randoms and running a Lost Stopwatch, because then I'm not going to be able to sustain myself and feel comfortable with it. Everyone's going to go in the comments and be like, but I don't have a problem, I use that all the time. Great. Really proud of you. That's awesome. I'm just coming from the standpoint that I have tanked dozens of Gorgs at this point, high level content constantly, and have way too many hours in this game. I'm just giving you my 2 thoughts on this. Now let's go ahead and talk offhand options. As you can see right here, slotted in my tank build, I always run Terzna, and no, I haven't run Worm to be able to finally unlock this, but it's life stealing on here, but that's not really why I'm using it. Most of the time it's for Trenchant Recovery and Sundering Clear Out. And you might be asking the question, of all the perks to add onto your weapon, why is Sundering Clear Out? Why not Sundering Shockwave if you wanted to do Rend? Well, it's pretty obvious. Sundering Clear Out does 24% compared to the 15% for Sundering Shockwave. And while I can do Sundering Clear Out, I can also put Shockwave on my armor for 10% more rend. And if I put Clear Out on my armor, it's also 10%. So you tell me what makes math better there. Those things together give me 34% rend just from this, plus the 16% from here. That's 50. I'm already almost at cap just in regular stuff, but with a 140 cap inside Gorgon, all of the stuff stacks. So then you use Armor Breaker for another 30 on top of this. You get all of the rend that you're getting from the sword with the 3 light attack, as well as the Trenchant rend. You get where I'm going. You yourself could be your own rend bot running this build. And the one other benefit of Terzna is that you can actually slot a Carnelian inside it. So you can't do that with Spark of Milner. You'd have to run Stopwatch. And while I do have another hammer that's also really good that I like, that I crafted, it's right here, Sundering Clear Out, Trenchant Rend. Then I had this one specifically to Perker craft. I have Trenchant Rend on my sword. I'm just going to use Terzna also because it has Trenchant Recovery. Heavy attacks, you heal for 25% of them, so you can kind of stay in there, keep the Rend, and every time you switch to be able to throw the hammer, you lose armor, but you're going to get some heals by just doing the attacks. So just as a thought there, all of this stacks on top of Blood Drinker, and you're going to be able to see a lot of self-sustain. Now, there are two other options I use when tanking. If I feel like I need to apply Rends, I'm running Terzna. However, if somebody's running some kind of Rends in the raid or in Gorg or in somewhere else, I'm using Power Stone instead. Why? Because I want to be responsible for weakens and support, which is really cool because not only can I give empowers to everyone, not just my group with leadership, but I'm also being able to give haste. I'm also giving debuffs for weaken and things like that. It's a really all-around great weapon. And once again, for self-sustain, I have Mending Vortex on here, so I get some of the heals back. But the best part about running Power Stone is even while I'm on my sword and swinging, it will actually do the 20% weaken for 5 seconds while I'm swinging with my sword. It works on both weapons. Even though it doesn't say it, it does, which is what's really cool. So I'll be running Power Stone as my offhand, running Crowded Bludgeon to be able to do an extra taunt and get that second taunt. Really nice. It actually has a better uptime than Resolve, and almost, I think it has a larger taunt range than Resolve too. So when I'm using Power Stone, I really feel in control of my taunt a lot better than when I'm running like Hammer, because Shockwave has a much smaller range. You have to actually damage them. And the last thing that I'm playing with right now, if there's already a healer running Flail up in the mix, if there's already someone actually running with Terzna, I've actually started using Spear. And this is just the one from the actual raid. It doesn't matter. But if you don't want to use the one from the raid, you can just find one on the market. You're just looking for a weapon perk on it called Enfeebling Skewer. Why? Because you're hitting a 50% weakened by just hitting them with Skewer. It also lays a pretty good bleed on there too. And you could follow this up if you had Perforate on your armor. You could do Fortifying Perforate, which you can get on the Chiron if you wanted to do that instead. Fortifying Perforate gives you 17% Fortify, max 3 stacks. So just from this, you can get 50% Fortify by just hitting like Perforate. Even if you don't even do weaken, this is also a really good way to, depending on how you want more armor, or do you want to be able to weaken the boss? You can get a lot of really cool thoughts by using the Spear in your offhand. Now, a lot of people might say, well, why wouldn't you just use Venom? And I agree, Venom is really cool, heavy attacks. Not only are you doing Rend with the Hoplite if you have Trenchant Rend, but you're also laying down bleeds, which is really cool and ticks up your Heartrune. However, I always run Bleeding Sweep on Venom for obvious reasons. Procs the heavy attack, which does Trenchant Crits and Trenchant Strikes, which is really cool. If you're willing to put Skewer or Perforate on here, be my guest. But this is usually what I run on Venom just because it procs all the other perks together. And you can run the stuff on the armor and then do that, but the weaken is not as powerful, nor is the Perforate. And one fun option that I've wanted to play with is actually the Inferno. Inferno is really cool because you can get at like more damage scaling, which this counts as base damage. And seeing as Blood Drinker kicks back 15% of the damage, or 25% of the damage, you actually get 15 back here. So not only are you increasing your damage back up, you're still able to get Blood Drinker, you're still able to get all of that. Now you've gained a range part of it, but you also can get a taunt on the Flame Staff that will apply weakens and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I just said Flame Staff. That was such a troll. But on the Fire Staff ability, you can actually use that ability to get a bunch of weaken as well as empowerment, as well as some cool things on the offhand for Inferno. So could this be a nice option? Sure. And maybe I'll do a future video on the Inferno tank build, but that'll be for another day. Next up, I want to talk about gemming, and I want to talk about resistances. And that means I'm also talking about different shields. So what I normally do is in my armor, and this is actually due to Spartacus, who's actually, he has another YouTube channel here on YouTube where he does tank videos as well. And by recommendation of him, he's also my brother, and also testing it. This is what I've been running, is leeching onyxes. I love leeching in the actual specific gear. I think it's nice. More leeching plus Blood Drinker and all that stacks, the healings increase. You get the point, right? A lot of self-sustain. And it's so true to just, you can just stand there and keep swinging and you're good, right? So I run leeching onyxes in the armor, so that gives me I believe it's like a 10% here, because you've got 2% physical damage absorption, so that's 10% here. And then on my jewelry, I typically run opals, so this should be 7.5 protection from the actual jewelry, and then you have 10 from here, and so you're running most of the time around 10% protection. So how do I make things work? Like in the rage, you need strike, you need nature, and you need slash, depending on who you're tanking. What I do is I have a specific amulet per thing. So here's my strike amulet. It is total boo-boo, but it has strike protection for 5, and I have the actual jasper slotted. So this is 20% resistance here that I'll slot over. I also have a moon stone and a slash amulet. If I can find it, it's in my inventory. Yeah, I literally passed right over it. So really cheap Verglass amulet. Like this comes from, a mutator, and it even has health divine slash protection. This is what I use for Typhon, plus the 5% here. Here's 20% for this. And then I also have my nature one right here, same thing, nature and health. This came from a mutator drop, 6%. So here's 21% protection on this amulet when I slot it on. And then to go even further, I have a shield for everything. So I have a shield with nature shield ward. I even have a strike shield, which is right here, and I'm currently wearing, or no, actually in a gear set, I have the Palisade, which is from the PvP track. That is just a slash shield. So 15% from those plus the 25, I'm getting 35 just from shield and amulet, plus the 10% or the 7.5 or 5 when you change out the amulet to be able to make those protections. So when I'm in doing, higher level content, I change my shield and my amulet. Unless I'm just doing like normal kind of tanking, I'll keep my amulet on and just change the shield. So that usually is just enough. But for Gorgon, I'm changing both most of the time, just so I have the best protection and I'm not a problem for my healer and for my team. For the Heartrune, I specifically run the Stalwart Heartrune of Stone Form, and depending on, if you're going to be running Worm or things like that, you want Heartrune of Firestorm. If you're going to be running in and throwing Vines for DPS on Typhon, sure, you want to run Grasping Vines. If you want to be able to escape, you could totally run Detonate to get the 30% haste. There's a bunch of options. I just know that Stone Form, when I need to make sure I'm not going to get CC'd and knocked over, like Echidna a lot of times will try to knock me over with tailspins and stuff. If I don't have enough time to switch into doing grit or tail swipe specifically, even grit will knock you over. I'll pop a Stone Form so I don't have to get moved. Sure, there's a mending aspect of here, so there is some healing you can get, but mainly I'm using this for CC control. All right, that was a whole lot. Let's get into attributes, and what you can see is I'm actually geared for something completely different, and this is a great time for me to respec and show you how I make this work. So currently I'm not running any food, but my goal is to make my constitution be at 350. Now, some of you might say, oh, that's too much con, Cyrus, or man, that's not enough con. But whatever the case, 350, and I'll explain the 2 or 3 bubbles that make sense. The 200 bubble gives you 10% increase to physical and elemental armor. So there's a 10% armor buff here. On top of the 50 bubble, 5% physical armor buff. So these two things stack really well together. At 300, we actually get grit for all heavy attacks, which applies to our sword, as well as getting the startup animation for light attacks also having grit. So they just brought that back. Who knows if it'll stay, but really nice. I like this. But seeing as we're going to be gritting a lot because of doing heavy attacks and light swings, getting that base damage reduction while having grit is really good. Just imagine all damage 10% less just because you're swinging. That's really the big thing here, is you're swinging a lot. So I'm running 350 to get that bubble to unlock. So in the end, when I throw all of my points into strength, and this totally depends on what your build is and how much points you have. Personally, I'm sitting at 249. Most of you, if you're not as close to 725, you're around 700. This might be around the 200, 205, 208, 210 mark, right? This is where an attribute food comes in. Now, you might have to switch your magnify to strength and eat a con food, or go to con and eat a strength food, depending on what you're doing. But I have banana bread that when I eat it will pass me over the 250 mark, which is the important bubble that I do want. I want 250 strength, 350 con, which is achievable pretty easily. So banana bread on my server is pretty cheap. I'm on Hudson Land, by the way, and banana parfait is pretty cheap, which is 44. Sure, you can get, roasted rabbit for 48. You can make the things, whatever the case. But when I eat this banana bread, it's going to put me at 293 strength. Yay, that's cool. Oh man, do I want the 300 bubble? That would be so cool, but I don't care about that. What I'm more concerned with is the 250 bubble. 33% stamina regen rate while performing basic melee attacks. What are we doing with our sword? Light attacking a whole bunch, which means we're getting our stam back after blocking or getting exhausted or dodging. We're getting our stam bar all the way back really quickly. So the 250 is the goal here. 350, cool. Man, I want to do a lot of DPS as a tank. Okay, your goal is a tank, not to do DPS. And if your DPS suck from the mutator, you should consider leaving the mutate. That's simple. But from this, you can see, 1291 base for the hoplite sword. That's with the blood drinker kill there with all the stuff that's happening. So just understand that you're not going to be doing a massive damage, but you're doing enough damage and you're healing from the damage you're doing, and you're swinging a lot. Now, let's go ahead and go over our weapon tree for sword. We're going to be doing the leadership side, specifically because the more damage we do, the more we heal. Now, there's a total argument for doing the defender side, and personally, I like playing defender. However, there are times I play with Gorgon groups where they don't have enough DPS, and I feel like I have to run leadership just to give them the bump. And some people, and again, someone's going to be in the comment section going, if you're not running leadership, you're trolling. You know how many times I've heard that? It's so stupid. I've cleared Gorgon an inordinate amount of times doing defensive formation, and it doesn't seem any different. Sure, it's 10% less. Totally is. But it's empower damage, and everyone's already speccing to be an empower cap. Is my 10% really helping if they're at empower cap anyway? Just saying, leadership is a great thing. However, if they're already speccing their build to be at 50% empower cap, this is a wasted perk, and I could be doing something to better help myself as a tank. So what we're going to do is, specifically the perks are Upheaval, Whirling Blade, and Defender's Resolve. We're going to be doing Upheaval because the last upgrade is Tactician. On successful hit with Upheaval, all sword cooldowns are reduced by 25%. So you're like 30-second Defender's Resolve, right? You just cut it down to 22 point something seconds just by hitting that piece. And you can almost get to hit twice before you actually have to hit to resolve again. And you're going to have this up a lot more often, which means increased healing if you do have accelerated resolve and all the grit and all the other. There's just a lot of really good benefits of having defenders up at all times. Now we're running Whirling Blade specifically because the upgrade after that is being in a heavy armor set. We actually inflict weaken, 16% weaken for 6 seconds, which is what's really nice. Some people may opt to do Leaping Strike, which is a really fun kind of fast-paced gameplay, but there's no benefit except for slowing your targets. And then there's some upgrades you can do here for doing more damage to slowed targets. That's just not for a tank, in my opinion. Could it be an option? Sure, but in my opinion, no. Whirling Blade with the weakens is what I would definitely play here. We do want to get Achilles Heel. The final attack in your light attack chain inflicts a 15% rend. We've talked about this multiple times. You as a tank are making sure the DPS does more damage, basically. And you can keep this going by just light attacking. 2-second rend, you're just continuing to light attack, right? And get things going. Heavy attacking every now and then. We're going to go into Freeing Justice. Heavy attack does make you lose a debuff. Being able to self-cleanse yourself is nice. Mobility for faster blocking. You want to be able to move around and get to the target while also right-clicking if you need. Critical Precision, gaining haste for 5 seconds. And the reason I'm taking these is because I need the points to get leadership. Some people might want to go for Confidence. Will Health is Full do 15% more base damage? Totally an option. You could go ahead and grab that instead of haste. I think that's probably a better choice. However, I like making sure I can get to the mobs and not be stuck, which is always really cool. Opportunist, you could take that instead of Tactical Strike so that you can actually do more base damage to slowed foes. You're not really doing any slows. Somebody else might be. This is kind of a waste in my opinion. Leadership we've already talked about. On the right hand side for Defender, we always take Sturdy Shield for more armor. We're going to be doing reduced damage for all magical types. This is what's really cool. You could totally do High Grip here, which is stamina is reduced by 15% when blocking ranged attack. I just think this is a wasted perk personally. We're going to go into Defenders all the way down because the last upgrade is when Defender's Resolve ends, that happens for 6 seconds, you heal for 30% of your base damage. So if you got 20,000 health, you get a 6k bump, and then all that also stacks. So if you're running Ankh, that actually is increased by 25%, so you're getting even more. You can see how everything synergizes, right? Recuperation, you get another basically 10% increase in healing regeneration for yourself, which is what's really nice. Final blow is required. The third attack in your light attack chain does 15% more base damage and does more threat, a lot more threat. So not only are you doing rend, but you're putting out threat to be able to keep it. And a lot of times I don't even have to hit a taunt. I can just run into a fight and just start light attacking, and I can generate enough threat over other people where I don't have to taunt, which is also really nice. The last piece here is defensive training. When you block an attack, gain 20% fortify. Pretty easy. Fortify just increases your armor, 20% extra armor just by, all you gotta do is pull up your shield for just a moment, let it hit one time, and you can go back to swinging. You've instantly gained 20% armor, and it stays for 5 seconds. Magic. All right, I'm not going to go through every one of the trees for the offhands, but I'm going to show you what I do use. Obviously, Armor Breaker for 30% rend, Shockwave to be able to CC stop, as well as apply some weakens, and rend if you have the armor perk on your armor, and then clear out. Obviously, I'm running it to be able to do rends and a bunch of stuff like that. Has increased range, reduced mobility, and then also gives you a bunch of haste. If you're running Flail, this is what I run both as a healer as well as for tanking. So this is pretty consistent if you're looking for the healing part of a Flail. We're doing Smite to be able to actually get a bunch of Fortify, 30% Fortify for 6 seconds. You can swap over to the Flail, throw your cooldowns, all 3 of them, and you can be at 6,000 armor with just in like 2 seconds. All of your stuff popped. 6,000 armor, flop back over to your sword, and then apply more things to get more armor. You can see where you can easily be 7,000-8,000 armor with this build. Obviously, we're running Arcane Vortex with Mending Vortex on our actual weapon. Gives us a bunch of heals, roots things. We do Flailing Stability, which gives us benefits to everyone around us. And then we are going to be running Better Together, which gives us a small healing effect around us, but it also gives us, as the tank, some more self-sustain and healing while we're on the Flail. Crowded Bludgeon is the choice for the taunt. And also, if you have a DPS that's close to you, you're able to give them a reduction in damage as well as 15% in power. This could be really beneficial here. Just also remember, people are usually at in power cap. And if you're curious about the fire staff thing earlier, this is my normal fire staff thing, but Incinerate was what I was talking about earlier, where you could taunt with Incinerate. You're running Inferno, which I thought would be really cool. Yes, it has a 3-meter radius. It does a bunch of damage, but you apply Weaken, 12% Weaken for 5 seconds. You're able to cleanse a debuff in the area, and then obviously grant Empower for every target you hit. So this is what's really cool. I've seen this work a couple different ways, so I'll probably tank a Gorgon with it, see if it's viable. I'm not going to tell you yes right now. Now I'm going to go ahead and queue for Random Mutated Expedition, and obviously it's going to pop really quick because as a tank you're going to pop really quick, but I'm going to show you some footage for Gorgon, and you can go ahead and use that however you want. The big thing here is I'll probably do a basics of Hive per specific piece. That video will come out soon. Let me know if you want to know that. Especially as a tank, there's some really cool strategies you can do at each boss to make it to where you're going to let your team survive, as well as you're going to mitigate a lot of damage. Like at Typhon, the whole ad phase, you should be taking 0 damage as a tank. So anyway, let's do this mutator. I'll show you a few things, and we'll come back here in just a moment. All right, Starstone M1. Now I am going to be using not the flail. We're going to use the hammer just so we can do clear out and do some CC as well as some damage. This is my typical run if I want to do some rend and things like that, and especially if I don't trust the healer, this is definitely the piece that I do. And seeing as I'm running completely random, I have no clue who they are, but the healer is here, so I'm going to go ahead and push forward. We're always going to go into the fight. I like to go in and start doing some light attacks. However, people like to go ahead and pre-attack like you just saw. So what you can see is I'm barely blocking ever. I'm just light attacking. I'm popping abilities. I'm generating threat. Now, Defender's Resolve is still up. Most likely they're going to pre-shoot this, which is going to be very unhelpful. As you can see, they've already generated a threat. Once I pop my taunt, I'll usually heavy attack to low out some rend. I'm light attacking. I'll hit upheaval, and you can see that I'm almost at my Defender's Resolve. I just got it back. I didn't wait 30 seconds. I barely waited. Look at this guy. Can I just say that if you pre-fire something, I'm not going to gain aggro from it. If you spank it, you tank it, my friend. Oh man, if you're going to be a bad tank, right? But the truth is, guys, if you're going to be DPS, let your tank get some aggro. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the time and say right here that if you're looking at this, look at this mob's health bar. You see how it's a yellow dot above it? I don't have aggro. But when I taunt, you see how it's got this red thing around it? Look very carefully. You see how it's red with some hashes? That means that I have aggro. You can see that boss in the back doesn't have the red hashes around it. But when I get up to it, I'm going to heavy attack it. I'm going to go ahead and generate some thread on it. Boom, now I have aggro. That's how you know if you have aggro as a tank. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is taunts specifically. Your taunt, like in this case, Defender's Resolve or Shockwave, is going to make it to where things focus you. Now, if they're in animation, they're going to focus everybody else. But if you've already used your taunts, how do you gain aggro instantly? Well, they've made it now so much easier to do that, and I'll show you. I'm not going to taunt, but I'm going to heavy attack this guy. Just heavy attack. If you have a Carnelian on, you see the taunt thing above his head. It does a quick taunt to turn the boss. Now, obviously on your weapons, you're going to be running Carnelians, right? Because as a Carnelian, you're going to be generating and actually activating your taunts on that weapon. But as you'll see, I'll go over to my sword in a moment. I actually run a rune glass, and I run that rune glass just because I want to have even more leeching. So I actually have a leeching Carnelian that does 3% leeching on that weapon. So I'll go ahead and taunt, and you can see I don't have a healer here. I'm just light attacking, and I have all those heals, 500 heals per swing. Is what's really nice. I'm able to just basically stay in this fight. Able to attack here, use Shockwave. That's my other ability for taunts. I'm doing heavy attacks to keep threat. And now everything's fully rendered. That flamethrower guy is just melting. So this is basically how Starstone's going to go most of the time. I'll probably bring you back towards the end of this mutator, or I'll just go ahead and record if anything else kind of unusual happens. But I'm already seeing that we have some DPS that are pre-firing and pre-shooting, and also falling off the map and dying. So you get what you get when it comes to mutators. So as you can see, I kind of wanted to get in here and do all of these attacks. I've got the actual taunt. We have this debuff for the actual stuff this week, which is Shiver. But you can see that there's a bow guy over there. And even though I have taunted, I don't have his aggro. And you can see sometimes you lose aggro. That's where a quick heavy attack will actually make that happen. But you can see this this archer, I didn't have his aggro because I wasn't doing damage to him consistently. So as a tank, one of the things that you need to do, and what I'll do right here, I'm sure these randos are going to mess this up, but you're going to see I'm going to get these melees. I'm going to get all these melees. I'm going to walk to the top of the stairs so that I can sit at the actual ranger. And the reason I do that is because the archers usually won't move. They're going to stay at range. You want to pull the melee people to the archers so that you can clump them and kill them. And sometimes you have good DPS that are in grav wells, or they understand this, but a lot of times in randoms, that's not the case. And you'll see them kind of just run off and kind of do their own thing. So expect that that's going to happen. Q M1s specifically to start. Don't try to go straight for M2s. Or even just practice in regular expeditions. You can see right here that I've got these 3, but there are still 3 mobs over there that might get aggroed depending on what they do. As you can see that just happened. So it's always best to, as you do these mutations or do the expeditions, you're going to learn where the mobs are and what's the best place to group them. Typically, like right here was the best place to group all of this. But you do have these 2 mobs over here that can be difficult, especially if you want to get this harvestable, which gives you more points, gets you closer to gold, more dense mutator materia, so you can go buy all that cool stuff. Yeah. All right, so for Starstone specifically, this is the perfect thing. I actually just pre-warned the team that I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to go in here, and all of these people are range mostly, or melee. I'm going up here, and they did not attack. Look at that. How beautiful. All right, burn. All right, see, they did not attack. I'm able to get all of that aggro on me. Everything's close except the one big guy there. But in higher mutations, these rangers are deadly. Like they just can take out lower con players that are sitting in the background. So as a tank, if you pull everything to the right area, you're going to be a lot more effective. So for sword, if you're going to buy one from the kiln, or if you're going to buy one from the actual like market, I would start with getting one with refreshing move on it. Contagious Upheaval is something that I think is really nice. Entrenchant Rend, while also really nice, you can get on separate weapons. It's not necessarily like required. There's a lot of people doing rends. But I would say that a sword with refreshing move is what I would prioritize over anything, so that you can get that accelerated resolve back as fast as possible. All right, we're here in the final room for the end of Starstone, and the team finally came together. We're actually waiting for me to do my taunts and not pre-firing as much, which was quite nice to be able to see. So, I mean, I know it's just mutators and people that just want their caches. So, I mean, I totally get that. Not even a question. But if you're a DPS or someone watching this, can you love your tank and, let him get his aggro? Because if he gets the aggro, he can make your job easier. There's a lot of benefit for everyone if you play your role. And we got gold. All right. So I'm actually going to do the loot. And it looks like we've gotten pretty much a bunch of different drops just from doing a mutator. And I think this is something that I want to leave in the video is, I went and did a mutator, I queued up, I did an M1, like what gear should I keep? What should I probably sell, and things that you can kind of hold on to, because the truth is you're probably going to be rocking stuff that is suboptimal to start. It's just kind of, you're going to get one perk or two perks that's good: Enchanted Ward Health, Enchanted Ward Weapon Perk, or Refreshing in Weapon Perk, or something like that. One or two decent ones before you actually get to the desired weapons and armor. All right, so yes, I have a lot of armor and gear and stuff in here, but anything that's not locked is basically fresh drops. So as you can see, here's a shield right here with Enchanted Ward that drops 686. That would be great. Enchanted Ward Thwarting Trip, Frost Conditioning, all those are kind of boo-boo. We got a hammer, we got a hated hammer here that would work. A hated sword, not necessarily that good, but we do have a refreshing move sword, which is con. That's really nice. We have life stealing on this hammer, also really nice. Refreshing move on this one, Path of Destiny. I mean, unless you're running Bruiser for raid or anything, not necessarily that great. But as you can see, I had this one drop in a mutator from an M2. This is refreshing move, Contagious Upheaval. And I saved this one specifically for this video to show you can get some good drops. Here's an earring, refreshing toast, healing heart, regenerating, not that great. Refreshing health. This is a good heavy glove to start off with, and some of these pieces might be something you can use. Shirking Fort, reinforced nature logging, no. Powering breaker, strike conditioning health, maybe. Refreshing stop and power, no. And you can look through here, you might see some slash con, strike con, things like that. Not too much to keep from here, but maybe one of these pieces like this one here, this heavy glove, one of these shields, definitely this refreshing move sword. Things that you can keep to be able to use for future runs. Now, I know this was a long video, but I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you did, I want you to comment down below #TankLife and go ahead and let me know how many of you actually watched to the end. Also, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe. More videos are going to be coming out. I took some time off to just build up my characters and play the game and enjoy it, but we're going to be back to it. Next is going to be a in-depth healer video. Then we're going to be doing 3 DPS builds that I would recommend for PvE specifically, and these are meant for Gorg. Things that you can use: a Rendbot build, a ranged build with Fire Staff, as well as a Rapier build, including both evade and DPS, not DPS, but evade as well as bleed Rapier. We're going to be talking about things you can use, gear up, where to get it, things like that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.